Good morning, everybody. It's staff meeting for February 10th. Tom, what we got?
Chairman and Commission, good morning. We have several items today, a lot of it legislative in nature. We have Jim Davenport, who is our federal lobbyist, who will zoom in and we've backed him up to 10:15 because Commissioner Howell had an emergency meeting come up. So we're going to discuss four things. We've talked historically about if the city sales tax does not pass, that the county might want to run a sales tax. We'll talk about that briefly. Federal platform. Then Tanya's got some legislative items, as is typical every day. There's new legislative items coming up. So we'll talk about that, number three. And then just a short update from Justin on the consultant and the data center work that we are doing. We'll finish up with that. So sales, I don't know how you want to proceed with sales tax discussion. If Commissioner Howell wants to go, or if the other commissioners want to talk, or staff needs a little bit of guidance on how we want to manage through the next couple of weeks here.
Just let Commissioner House speak, and then if there are any other commissioners have questions or comments.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to say, many of you know I had a car accident Friday. I just want to take a point of personal privilege here to say thanks for your care and concern. I do want to say thank you to our EMS folks, Daniel House and Tyler P., paramedics and whatever their position is exactly, I don't know, but they did an amazing job driving one of our big giant new ambulances. I got a nice visit to Wesley ER, and I've been taken care of, and people have been very kind and loving to me. I'm better than I deserve. I'm doing okay. I'm getting the care I need, and just say thank you to everybody for that. So there might be questions as to what's wrong with me. That's it. I do have a broken bone in my ankle, which I'm sure I will get fixed. So all in all, considering all the things that could have gone wrong and all the things that did go well, I am abundantly blessed and better than I deserve. So I'll say thank you for everybody for that. Back to the proposed sales tax. I gave you guys a handout. This is just trying to move the conversation forward. I know there's another idea out there, but I feel like we're running out of time. It was my intent to get this through a stalemate. If we're going to move forward, we need to have the legislature pass legislation that, again, keeps the conversation going forward. Even if they were to pass legislation, it doesn't bind us to put the question on the ballot. It just gives us permission to do so. There is a piece of legislation that would give us this right to do this without seeking legislative approval each and every time as a county, but that has not passed, obviously. So as of right now, unlike a city, we have to get permission from the legislature. There are a couple of things about this one which would probably require legislation anyway. As you know, our 1% countywide sales tax, which has been in place since 1985, goes to a distribution formula, which is in statute. And I've given you guys the breakdown of that. Essentially, I believe this last set of numbers I've got, Wichita received about 85 million of that. And Wichita, Sedgwick County received about 41 million, I guess. I'm not quite sure exactly. But the mill levy equivalent for the city has lowered their mill levy. If you count in the county mill levy reduction and the city's mill levy reduction based on sales tax revenue, has reduced the tax levy by more than 21 mills. And the genesis of this entire discussion is when I talk to people about sales tax, you want to repeal the sales tax, everyone quickly would say, yes, I hate taxes. And I understand their perspective, but when they recognize there's 21 mills offset in property taxes because of the 1% sales tax, people become, they change position. The 1% sales tax, which is lowered mill levy by over 21 mills for Wichitans, because it's been over 40 years, you'll see a reduction in housing costs. For example, someone who pays rent to the landlord, their landlord is not paying 21 mills on the house that they're renting to a renter. So in time, the reduction in property taxes will be realized by everyone. Property owners would be more immediate and renters would be eventually. But the idea of lowering housing costs in the light of the discussion of affordable housing and paying for some of the things that are considered discretionary amenities of Sedgwick County through sales tax, that also has a pull factor, is the proposal. Do we want to have if 1% that offsets 21 mills is good, the question I raise is a 1/4%. And again, if we retain that revenue to Sedgwick County, would require legislative approval to do this differently. We would lower our mill levy by approximately 5 mills. And I say that because everything that's going to be funded through this is currently in the budget or is currently in the budget funded through the commingled property tax and sales tax funds as part of our general fund. The exception of that would be the interest bank arena, which we know is becoming a property tax problem. So if you take all that responsibility that's currently in the budget or will be part of our budget going forward, and you say we're going to deal with all of that using this new sales tax fund, then that's another way of taking care of the problem without adding that to the burden of property taxes. Everybody in Sedgwick County, it means every city, all 20 cities, as well as the unincorporated, would receive the same property tax benefit. Commercial, real estate, all classifications of property would have the same benefit if the county does this themselves on behalf of all taxpayers. So whether you're talking about residential, commercial, you're talking about a small city versus Wichita, or the unincorporated, there's a uniform benefit to all property taxpayers, a reduction of about 5 mills that's paid for with a roughly 1/4% sales tax. It's dollar for dollar sales property tax relief via a small consumption tax. And so the details of that are laid out on that 4-page document I gave you. You can read through this if you'd like to do that, but that's in general what that does. There's been some discussion about what would be under this proposal. I've decided, I guess, through ongoing discussions, I think a 60-40 split makes some sense. That 60% of the funds goes to the general fund to pay for core functions of government, and the 40% goes to what I'm calling a community-based programs fund. I'm sorry, culture, recreation, and community-based programs fund. I've given it the acronym CRCBP fund, and it would need to be I think 2 more pieces of data here. We'd have to create, if you will, a fund to hold the revenue that once it's in that fund, it doesn't come back out to be spent for other things. And second of all, I would think we need to have an advisory board to advise the commission on how to best to divide those dollars. And it would be my intent through resolution that any entity that receives funding through the CRCBP fund would be ineligible for property tax funds as well. So if there is something that comes onto the county budget that is a discretionary entity, we could fund through property tax or through sales tax, but it is not a core function of government. It's something we choose to do, and I have a lot of examples of what that might be. They would be eligible, I should say. They should be part of this culture, recreation, and community-based programs program, if you will. The fund would be set aside to fund them specifically. And that way they have, if you will, a dedicated revenue stream. I've said before that entities that are property tax funded are vulnerable. And if you haven't been paying attention to the legislature this year, everything seems like there's more property tax bills this year than any year I've ever seen before. Property tax dollars looks like they will be limited in the future, something I'm sure will pass. And for us to go above certain caps that are being designed in statute, possibly in Constitution, will be very difficult going forward. And so any entity that currently receives property tax funds, that's a discretionary funded entity, I think would be much better off having a dedicated sales tax fund to take care of them. It protects them, and it gives them a dedicated revenue stream that's not property taxes. So it's in the best interest of these entities to see them move over. It's in the best interest of all county taxpayers for the county to do this on their behalf rather than having this distributed amongst different cities. I know there's another proposal. I would talk about that if we have time to do so. It would be my intent to get feedback from my colleagues and make adjustments to this plan. It's my hope that we would take this to a vote on the 18th of February, and we would go to the legislature and get this in bill form and get the legislature to approve this session so that we have so the conversation can continue. The details, exactly how this fund would work, exactly what would be in that fund, those are future discussions we can have after the legislature approves the permission for us to go forward to a ballot question. We will continue the conversation. We can always decide not to do it. And my intent would be that if Wichita does in fact pass a 1% sales tax, it'd be my intent to put in this legislation that the effort to seek legislative approval would be suspended at any point in this process where the Wichita sales tax would pass. I'll stand for questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Commissioners, any questions?
I do, yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner Howe. I agree with virtually everything that Commissioner Howe said on the need. From jump, I have always believed that the MAPS-like programming is something that is interesting to me from a county level, from city of Wichita level. I felt like that was an interesting discussion. The other piece of this was the property tax offset. I thought that was necessary. I believe in that premise. I think that the needs that Commissioner Howe has indicated, particularly in some of our cultural art amenities and Trust Bank, Sedgwick County Zoo, and others, I think that those are real needs, and we're going to have real conversations about what that looks like. I've always been in the accord. I don't think these should be property tax funded. I think that this is a sales tax funding mechanism that needs to manage and help fund the operations in particular, or capital investments at these entities, because of all the things Commissioner Howe said. Pull factors, property taxes should be for core services, primarily public safety. I agree with everything that Commissioner Howe says on that. The challenge is that I think a lot has changed the last 6 weeks in our community. A lot has changed, and the timing has changed. And I think it's incumbent on the commission to really consider the type of leadership that's needed in the community right now. I think that we have to understand the temperament of the community. I think we have to understand the conversations that are happening in the community right now, the confusion that's in the community, the frustration that's in the community. I think that we need to, from a leadership standpoint, I think we need to understand those things. What I think needs to happen, whether the city of Wichita plan passes or doesn't pass, I think it'll be incumbent on local leaders to understand the need for reconciliation in our community. I think there'll be a period of reconciliation that's going to have to happen. I think it's going to be incumbent on us at the county to help lead in that process. So in my view, I think that we have to have a better understanding of several different things. Number one, we need to have a better understanding of what the legislature is going to do so that we can understand the landscape and the playing field. There's a lot of things that are out there right now, and we really have no idea where the ball is going to land here in a couple months of what this looks like. I think we do need to understand what the city of Wichita, this is, for me, this is 70% of my constituents live in the city of Wichita. I think that there's a partnership with the city of Wichita that is incumbent on the county to understand where they're at and how we can best serve our community. I think we need to understand that better. I just think there's so much happening right now that part of what we do in leadership is we need to understand kind of the tenor of the conversation and what the community needs. These needs are real, but I think what the community needs from us at this point in time, no matter what happens with the city of Wichita's plan in March, is I think they're going to need us to lead into the conversation of some reconciliation. So that does not deny anything Commissioner Howe has said. I think that we do need to have a conversation about what sales tax in the rural is. I just think it's the timing of it has changed, that the last 6 weeks has changed the timing in that. So I am not going to vote to support to put anything on a ballot and go to the legislature because I think that the timing has changed. And I think that our community needs a break. I think they're going to need a break from this conversation around sales tax and give us some time to build a plan and confidence that we can really lead in the community in a way that's going to be needed. Doesn't mean that the issues aren't real, and it's going to be incumbent on us as leaders when we're building budgets to understand that. We're going to have to communicate that to the community as well, that these needs are real and we need to be creative in some solutions. But I think what they're going to look for us at this point in time, starting March 4th and beyond, no matter what happens with the vote, is they're going to need us to lead in a different way. So, and I think they're going to need us to lead a broader community conversation. So because of that, I just think this community is going to need some healing time. And so I won't be able to support anything I'm putting and asking the legislature to approve anything at this point in time. So that's where my head's at. I don't know where my colleagues' heads are at. It does not take away from all the real needs that we have here, but there's other needs that we have to take into consideration too.
Sure.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate those comments. I just wanted to say once again, this is not the end of the discussion. This is simply giving us the options on the table. I know the community would have a great interest in this discussion. In fact, I would say that the discussion of property tax relief is an urgent discussion, and it's screaming for someone to do something significant. Let me just point out, this is 1/4 of the sales tax or 20% more property tax, not just for Wichita only, but for the entire county. So it's more property tax relief for 1/4 of the sales tax because it's dedicated specifically to property tax relief. And again, we've demonstrated through the 1% sales tax we currently levy today, a tremendous value in what that sales tax provides in terms of property tax relief. That is real. We all need to understand that. And I would never want to see us repeal that with that knowledge. What people are screaming for is for property tax relief. And if we delay this, we're talking about a whole nother year. And also it changes the sunset schedule. I mean, the intent of this was to be on the 2026 ballot, potentially. Doesn't mean we have to do that. But the sunset schedule would be in 2030, then every 8 years thereafter on the gubernatorial general election. So again, one of the complaints about Wichita was they were rushed. This gives people from now till November to understand this. It would have the largest voter turnout with the exception of a presidential general election. And that sunset schedule, in my opinion, is important to keep it on that schedule. And if this would ever be repealed, we simply return back to current law. And now, again, this again proves to people, because people distrust government. I understand why they distrust government. I do too, actually. But this says we are going to demonstrate responsible governance with your money, and we're going to lower your property taxes. We will prove it to you. If we don't do that, you have the chance of undoing this and going back to where we just came from. So the idea of a short sunset to get started and then a repeating sunset to keep this policy moving forward, I think the people deserve that. So again, this is not in any way binding a decision. This is simply just giving another option on the table. One thing about the Wichita sales tax, which I think is popular, is the property tax relief. That is a popular component of their 5 buckets of money. And I think if you to break this down, if they were to break this up into 5 pieces, that's the one piece I think would actually pass. I don't know. Again, that's their choice. They can do it however they want. I'm simply saying, let's give the people what they're clamoring for. And by putting this to the legislature, it keeps the conversation moving forward. It does not bind us in any way. The people will have plenty of chances to understand this moving forward, but we have a very short deadline to keep this conversation alive. If we're going to be quick to decide that we don't want to have this option on the table, then I would like to bring this up for a vote and have everyone vote no. So it's clear that we chose not to do this. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other feedback?
Yeah, I would just say thank you, Chairman. I don't disagree with anything Commissioner Howe has just said. And I do think that people are clamoring for property tax relief. I just think there are other issues that we also have to take into consideration about where the community temperament is and the need of the community. And I think that's part of leadership. I think this community is going to need a break from the topic of sales tax. I do agree they don't trust government. And I want more than 6 months to build that trust and more than 6 months to develop a plan. And I understand what the legislature is going to bring to us, what the playing field looks like. I also want to understand what the city of Wichita is going to look like and if there's opportunities for deeper collaborations in time that we can build a significant plan that will be not just property tax relief, not just paying for some of our Sedgwick County amenities with sales tax, but really be transformative with how we modernize government. I think that might be an opportunity, and I don't think we can do that in 6 months. So I would just say that I'm fine to say that again in the middle of a vote as I'm voting no. Everything Commissioner Howe has just said is absolutely spot on. My only contention and why I won't be supportive is the timing of it. Is I think this community needs more time for this discussion, and we need to understand where the playing field is. I think there's going to be transformative opportunities. I believe it. I think that we can really lead in a big way, but I think this community is going to need a break, and they're going to need us to step into that gap to lead this conversation. And we're going to need more than 6 months to do that. So
I tend to believe with my colleague Commissioner Beatty, just all the confusion and everything that's going on with the city sales tax. I know tonight they're having a meeting about guardrails. There's been a lot of discussion about that. And I'm only a couple weeks away from this vote. I really don't want to introduce anything out there that's going to muddy the waters anymore.
Again, this is only for the legislature. This is not for the public to have to understand at this time. It would be, again, what I'm asking for is feedback on this specific plan. And if you want to change something, I would be open to hearing you to make changes to this plan. It's my hope to put this up for a vote, and I would encourage my colleagues that don't support this to just simply vote no. But I feel like we need to lean forward. And I have been talking about sales tax now for, I don't know how many, several years, like 3 or 4 years, as a way to make it clear. We don't want to take someone's home over something that is discretionary. And I have all kinds of examples. I used to use Riverfest or the Arts Council. I don't want someone to lose their home over decisions to fund those things. Even economic development, which I know most of us think is very, very important, or the extension office and all that goes. I don't want someone to lose their home over that. I think people deserve to, and if someone wants to understand that the reason your property taxes are high is you're paying for things like the election office and the sheriff and the jail and emergency management and health department and all it goes. They understand that. There's less complaint about that. When people say, you know, you could cut property taxes, I say, well, there's nothing we can cut. One of the first things they say is, well, you can cut the culture and recreation, and they'll start naming stuff. And I can't disagree with them. That is an option. By moving that over to sales taxes, it delineates a clarity that we're not funding those things through property taxes. Their property taxes are for core functions of government. Bridges and roads and public safety. That's what they understand that. They're less, they don't complain about that. They do complain about, and I just make this kind of, it almost sounds like a joke, feeding penguins is a very, very important thing we do. We should do it with sales tax. I don't want someone to lose their homes over that. So there's people who are losing their homes or could lose their homes who've never visited the zoo. They can't afford to go. And yet we take their money without their consent and we do things which we think are important, and they are. We should do that with sales tax. And that's all this is it gives us the chance to make it more structured. I've been talking about this for years now. And the reason this has come up today is because we're at a critical mass. This legislature has to, and I understand there's a conflict because Wichita came up with this thing in December and came up with a new idea. Our conversation was moving forward before theirs came up. And if you don't want to do it through a sales tax that's dedicated for this purpose, I'll dust off the other proposal on the existing sales tax, which we can do that too. That's another conversation we're going to have. Again, last time I brought that up for a vote, it failed. In fact, I didn't even get a second. Didn't get the chance to vote on that because it never got a second. So I've been consistent raising this issue over and over again. We're 5 Republicans. The Republican value of funding these types of things through consumption taxes rather than property taxes is a core function, is a core principle. I think we owe it to our people to give them the option. And all you're doing by not voting for this today, you're taking it off the table prematurely. I plan on bringing this up for a vote. I urge for your amendments to this to make it something that you can support. If you know you're going to vote no and you have no interest in changing it, that's fine. But I'm bringing this up today to give you guys a chance to understand it yet again and make changes that make you feel better about it to keep the conversation alive. And if we want to kill the conversation on the 18th, that is certainly your choice. Thanks again.
Any other comments?
Thank you, Commissioner Al. I have read this. We got it last night at 8:30, so we've had 12 hours to digest this, and it's quite extensive. But my gut, it also says that the emotion going on in the community about sales tax. I assume the rest of you are getting questions even this weekend. I went to 3 different things. My wife's birthday dinner and get hit at the table. What about the sales tax? It just is going on and on. Go to the dry cleaners. What do you think? What, they don't understand the sales tax right now. And I know that you're just saying was just going to the state to ask permission. But if we engage, it's going to be public that Sedgwick County is going to the state asking a sales tax. And then the same people that are confused will continue to be, oh, now the county's involved and the school district's going to do a bond issue again in November. that just got voted down however many months ago. There's a lot. And right now, I think Sedgwick County looks pretty stable and pretty responsible. And even the fact that we're having to try to answer individually on behalf of the city, it's difficult. And I agree that with what Commissioner Beatty was saying, I think that it needs to rest a little bit. Maybe it passes. But what we've not taken into account is there was a vote on the interest arena. So that needs to be considered. There was a vote of the public already on the zoo. That needs to be considered. The sunset of 8 years from now, the financial impact of what the bond and the financial evaluators are saying when you say that something expires in 8 years. I believe we should engage our fellow cities. Obviously, Wichita is the largest. They're in the middle of, I don't know that they're even capable of engaging right now before the 18th of February when the vote is in March. And I just think that, and we have a proven track record, as you stated, Commissioner Howe, of the history of 1985. And I know that the cities in Sedgwick County are very pleased with how that has happened since, is it 85 is when that happened? Yeah. And so they get their share. I think they need to be engaged to say, do you want this just to be property tax specific for Sedgwick County residents? And the benefactor will be Sedgwick County government on these CRCBP world, which those other cities are not directly involved in those decisions. So I think there's a lot, and there is there is another plan that I kind of have noodled around in my head with others about a continuation of what has historically proven successful at the 1985 environment. Instead of reinventing the world, we could maybe do a continuation of that and an expansion of that, whereby all cities will benefit as well. So between what is today, the 10th, and we got this last night, we've had it for 12 hours, and now you're wanting to put it on an up-down vote on the 18th. I can respect that. I guess we can throw out the other option, but if the mood of the commission is to just pause during this year and to really formalize it boy, I tell you what, I think personally, I think if we come out with anything that the residents really need to feel like it's that they understand it. They need to have trust in government, which I think is a flaw that's going on right now on this sales tax. So I'm really, I'm not ready to go forward with it. I guess if we want to talk about it on the 18th, we can talk again and say, well, there's another option and blah, blah, blah. But I think you're right. We got 5 Republican commissioners. We've got feedback from one of the best lobbyists in the state who's also a Republican saying maybe you need to have the brakes on this and not engage in this already very, very public discussion going on about a sales tax. So I took a lot of time to share these thoughts. But I totally agree with the direction we need to go. No question. I think it's on our front burners even, or back burner, whatever you want to call it. But I think it needs to be to do an up down vote 8 days from now. I can't see that doing a lot but confuse more people on stuff. So that's my thoughts.
Anything else?
I would like to give just a little bit of feedback, and I do have to go, and I apologize, but I think what Commissioner Meitzner is alluding to is an extension of our permanent 1% sales tax, raising that to 1.5%. It'd be no sunset. It would be divided out through the distribution formula as our current 1% sales tax is divided out. I believe that we don't know for sure what cities would do. We would encourage them to do property tax relief, but who knows what they would do. We only have control over the county funds, and that would be about a 1.6 mil decrease, if I understand correctly, maybe 1.7 mil decrease. And it's a 0.5% sales tax increase, not a 0.25%. So there's a lot of different things to understand there. Because of all those things, I probably would not be in favor of that because I don't know that I like the package of stuff. And I don't think it substantially solves the property tax problem enough. People want property tax relief. And I think if the county does this, I know that the discretionary things are our decision. I understand the point that was just made. But these things are in our budget. Unless we think we're going to close our zoo, I don't think we're going to do that. All taxpayers of Sedgwick County would benefit from our handling of this fund the way I've described it. I don't think they would disagree with what we're doing with those funds. But nevertheless, we're out of time. And my only concern is if we don't take care of this on the 18th, I'd like to just be done with it. If the answer is no, then let's stop talking about it. If the answer is yes, the conversation can continue. But if the answer is no, we're done. And we'll move on to other discussions and other ideas. But we're out of time. The legislature needs to have an answer if we're going to move forward. So that's why this is critical mass. I apologize for getting this to you late last night. I wrote this before my accident on Friday and giving it to staff. I was waiting for some feedback, which I didn't really receive any feedback. And I knew we were going to talk about sales tax today. So this was an effort to get some information out there. But let me just tell you that this is not largely different than what I've talked about before numerous times. So I feel like that you've had time to read it. You've had time to think about it. I would welcome feedback. I'm not receiving anything specific. But the short 12-hour time you've had with this document is not a reason, I think, not to provide feedback. With that, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I need to go. I'm going to go to Zoom. I'll be willing to participate by Zoom and listen in by Zoom. But I do have to head out. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, last thought on this. And I appreciate it. Again, thank you, Commissioner Howe. This conversation has been going on for quite some time. I've been involved in the conversation for 3 years since I've been on the commission. I actually tried to develop a plan that had the zoo, a capital project for the zoo, homeless funding, a capital project for convention, and property tax relief into one plan. And that was 3 years ago. And in the interim, Park City came out with a 1%, 1 cent sales tax. Mays came out with a 1 cent sales tax. Hayesville renewed their 1 cent sales tax. So we pushed pause, or I pushed pause on some of those conversations. Because I don't think we need an incremental sales tax over the top. We have right now $40 million we get on our 1%, current 1% sales tax. 50% of that goes to road and bridge. 50% of that comes to the general fund. I am more, because I only have about $13 million of discretionary funds that we have here, spending. I would be more in tune to support. Let's figure out what we do with and earmarking our current sales tax that we have instead of asking for more sales tax to do this with. Let's figure that piece out. I would rather take the current sales tax dollars we have instead of asking the community to support more sales tax dollars right now, and earmark that towards some of these discretionary things. So appreciate everything Commissioner Howe says. I think the property tax offset is real. I think the timing of this now has changed, and I think we need to give our community a break. So I won't be supporting anything for going to the legislature.
I'll just be really quick. I have always liked the idea that Commissioner Howe's proposing. I do, we did get it late last night, so I don't feel like I really am ready to make a decision on it today. However, I like what you just said, Commissioner Beatty, on how can we reallocate the current sales tax that we're getting. I don't know if we could do a little bit of work on that to see what that would look like. I think that that's a good first step because timing is really tough right now. I wish that we had done something before some of these other cities, made their move. I think that we could have done a really, great job that many people would have benefited from, but here we are. So I would like to explore that idea a little bit and see what we can do within our current sales tax to initiate some of this relief with what we've got already.
All right. Any other comments? If not, we'll move on.
We can bring that back in the end. We have 3 plans for that too. So we'll dust that off and bring it back. All right. Jim Davenport. Jim, are you on?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. If we can turn.
Morning, Jim.
Good morning.
Commissioners, in front of you, you have two documents. Tanya's provided the 2026 federal agenda congressionally directed spending request, and it's a short sheet, a two-pager. And then the longer platform that we have. And I don't know, Tanya, if you want to say anything else, or we just want Jim to talk, or how do you want this to proceed?
The only thing that I will mention is similar to the state platform, we push this out to county leadership to ask if they have anything they want to put on here. And so what you have in front of you is that kind of staff vetted items. And so that's one.
Jim, you want to go, and then maybe the commissioners can come in and ask questions or give clarification? So.
Yeah, that'd be great, Tom. Thanks. And thank you, Tanya. Thought we'd cover some items that have been on the agenda for the last couple of years. But I'd like to start with some good news first, because there were some projects on here from 2024 and 2025 that have come off, and that's because we were successful in getting some funding. We requested 3 million for ARC 95. We did that in both 24 and last year. And we got 3 million for it through Senator Moran's efforts. So congratulations to the county for that. That bill just passed recently, like in the last week. And I can help the staff navigate how that money will eventually come to the county. It does flow through KDOT. So we'll stay tuned on that. There's another project that's on your 26 agenda for the Emergency Operations Center for $2 million. That funding is currently in the Homeland Security Appropriations Bill for FY26, also compliments of Senator Moran. The problem is that bill has become a political lightning rod, as you may know, because of what's been going on in Minnesota. So whether that bill ultimately passes or gets extended through the entire fiscal year as basically a continuing resolution for that entire bill, it's up in the air. I'm not feeling good about the bill passing as a standalone bill, and it's probably going to go under CR. And all of that gobbledygook means is if it goes and it is extended for the full year under current spending, the earmarks usually fall out, which is what happened in 2025 with your ARC project. So if it falls out, we have to request it for next year, for this year. But Senator Moran has been behind that project, so I feel like we'll ultimately get it. I just don't know if it's going to be now or next year. So I think we want to keep it on the list until we have ultimate resolution with the Homeland Security Appropriations Bill. So after that, I'm kind of an open book here on, what projects might Sedgwick County want to put forth in front of Senator Moran. And I'm singling out Senator Moran because Senator Marshall and Congressman Estes do not do earmarks. So when we're looking for congressional directed spending, we have to go specifically to Senator Moran on those requests. You do have a project here, this reconstruction of 151 Street West, which the amount and what we're asking for is perfect for an earmark. But there are other host of projects we could look at. And Tanya and Tom, I think I sent you our planning document, which has other categories if the county wants to look at those. We would need to be submitting those to Moran's office sometime in March. So, that's up for consideration. If there's other projects you want to talk about now, or you want to talk to staff about, get back to me in the next couple of weeks. Totally fine. And then after that, Amtrak extension, I'm in conversations with Commissioner Meitzner fairly regularly on, keeping up with what is needed to be done there. Usually it's if there's things happening at the local level, Commissioner Meitzner has been really good at communicating that to me, so I can bring that forward to your congressional delegation. So after Amtrak, if there's things you want on here, we can do it. You just need to let me know. So I'll stop there.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Commissioners, any questions?
Well, Chairman, while we're there, could Lynn talk about 151st, since Jim mentioned that, and it does line up. I'm not sure the timing lines up. Lynn, can you talk about that for a second?
Sure. The 151st Street project that he's referring to is a reconstruction of 151st Street West, just to the east side of Colwich. The street spans from 53rd Street up to K96. That is currently a two-lane rural section of road with little to no shoulders that is heavily serving the ethanol plant on the north end of Colwich. A lot of truck traffic. We have. It is between 151st and 167th along 61st Street North. They recently expanded it and had you may recall there was a short period of time where they were closed with operations, but they are back open and fully operational. We have, even before the plant came fully online, this was a road that we were, because of the fact that it's a cold mix asphalt, we were yearly patching out there. We have redoubled our efforts and continue to patch on a yearly basis, spending a lot of resources to maintain this road with the heavy traffic. We have a project that's under design right now that's going to keep it still a two-lane highway, but it's going to widen the shoulders out to 8 feet. It's going to improve the drainage. It's going to allow us to get that traffic moving. And what's really nice about this corridor is that it connects to K96 at a location that provides a refuge, making a left-hand turn onto K96. At 167th, which is the other option, there is no refuge. There's no center island area for trucks that are making a left turn and have refuge. Whereas at 151st Street, those farmers that are coming in and dropping off their grain, they're able to take refuge at K96 halfway through the turn, making it a much safer intersection for them to use. That's why they are using 151st, and we tried to unsuccessfully to encourage them to use 167th, but it became just a losing battle for us. So that's when we decided to move forward with 151st, and it's almost a $4.5 million project to reconstruct that, but it needs to be brought up to current standards.
Questions or comments?
Chairman, while Jim's on the phone, Jim, you're a lobbyist for Wichita too, so you understand the water situation here really well. We've had a lot of water discussions at county level now between commissioners. You're also familiar with Sedgwick County and the growth pattern of the cities and kind of how we're developing, mostly in the western part of the county at a pretty rapid pace, and groundwater and access to water is becoming a big topic at the county level. I just put that on your radar in case there's anything you can think of or see regarding water conservation or water management at county levels, understanding that the municipality Wichita is the franchisee. They run water here for the area. So I just put that on your radar as well. Maybe we could shape something up. I didn't know if commissioners wanted to chime in on that as well.
I'm happy to touch on that a little bit more. In fact, I'm supposed to have a call scheduled with Gary Jansen here very soon over at the city. They have an authorized project through the Bureau of Reclamation that when Commissioner Meitzner was still a city council member there, I helped. That was one of the first things we did. It was help them get that project reauthorized. And since then, they've gotten, I think it's like 14 million through reclamation for that, reclaimed water. We are talking about additional projects through reclamation at the city level, but there are other avenues to get funding. You can get money through EPA, through earmarks and grants as well. Wichita's gotten 2 WIFIA loans. So yeah, I am in those conversations with water, but if Sedgwick's got any components of that you want us to work on specifically for the county, always happy to do it. But it sounds like it's all that Wichita controls all the water, is what I'm hearing.
Jim, is there ever any opportunities for grants or anything for possible studies or anything where we could better understand this?
Study, yeah, so the Bureau of Reclamation does feasibility studies to determine, you know, drought needs and so to speak. I'm thinking of studies through EPA, and I'm not sure that they have those available. Let me get back to you with, if I can find out if there's any other avenues for a study.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, good morning. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too, Commissioner.
No, another thing that it's not on our agenda today, but we probably need to bring you up to speed. We are working with Congressman Estes' office about options related to the 600 acres of the Northeast Sedgwick County Park. There may have,
Right.
We're just trying to get our hands around all of it and working closely with legal and financial but I don't think there's any legislative agenda other than we ought to engage you to make sure with the couple of people we're working with Estes' office on that.
Yeah, and I thank you for reminding me of that, because that was something we talked about this year. I'm certainly willing to help. That's a challenging one, as you know, but
Yeah.
I'm here when you need me.
Yeah, and it may be what it is, but we probably at this time, I think there's a feeling that we just want to see what, if we don't have any options, then we don't have any options other than.
Yeah.
So we're okay with that. Okay. And then thank you again. Your Amtrak help. It's kind of KDOT and FRA are closely working weekly, monthly on their next steps. I shared I know Chairman Blue Boss coming in town, and I shared with the kind of the timeline of where we're at. It's kind of, we've done a lot of the heavy lifting at the front end, and now it's sitting in with KDOT and FRA. I thought the speed of government was kind of slow locally here, but when everybody says that, I said, well, there's nothing like the speed of government unless you deal with Amtrak stuff. That is real speed of government. So
Spend a while in DC and you'll learn the meaning of speed of government. I will. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I remember 3 years ago, whenever I was there with the city of Wichita, and you got us in front of all the Amtrak staff, and that's pretty beneficial conversations. But I remember the timeline was quite a ways out there, but it seems like they're sticking with that timeline. It seems
we're moving along at their pace, as Commissioner Meissner just indicated. I mean, the benefit was there was a lot of money put into rail during the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act, which also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which gave them a large infusion of cash to move these projects. But I was shocked to hear how long it takes to build trains to get them on up and operating. So I guess we're going to just have to wait. And Chairman, I do have a request out to Senator Moran's staff when you're here, and I'm coordinating that with your staff.
Yep.
And we'll go in and visit them, and that'll be a good time to socialize any projects that we come up with that we want to ask for his support on.
great. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you here in a couple of weeks, Jim.
All right, sounds good. I'll see you soon. Thanks everyone.
What else we got?
We have state legislative items.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I am going to speak briefly on this, and then I'm going to hand it over to Linda. She's aware of that, but I just made her aware. Okay, so if you recall, I think it was last week or maybe even the week before, we had a long discussion about Senate Concurrent Resolution 1616, and you provided testimony to state legislature on that. So now what we have, I think that popped up Friday, is House Bill 2745. So now we're seeing kind of the House side, how they're wanting to address property tax. And so this is similar to what the House put out last year. They termed it the Astor Bill. But there are some modifications to it, and Aaron Wynn, who I think you're familiar with from Johnson County, put this out, and I didn't think there was any reason for me to report this. So this basically kind of summarizes what the changes are to that Astra bill. I'm happy to go through it, but I might just kind of hand this over to Lindsay if she's okay with that, to summarize it. I think she'll do a lot better job than I will. So Lindsay, you mind?
I am happy to talk about it, but I definitely am not going to do a better job than you would. So what this bill essentially seeks to do is reinstitute a different type of property tax lid versus what we've seen in the past. And so Angela in the clerk's office has already done some legwork for us to actually look at the ramifications of this. So I'll talk through what the bill is and then talk about what that means to us if this passes. I will say the only real upside I see to this bill is that it's not a constitutional amendment. And so that means it can be modified as we go versus SCR 1616. And I see the sheriff.
Sheriff is on for this bill.
Okay, for this one. Okay, sorry. So basically what this asks us to do is to go through and limit our property tax levy. So the dollars, not the rate, but the dollars from year to year in our budgets to 3% growth plus any adjustments for, as it reads in here, construction of any new structures or improvements, or the remodeling or renovation of any existing structures or improvements on real property, excluding ordinary maintenance and repair. And then it says if there was an election that was held to basically authorize the issuance of bonds or debt, then that also could be not subject to that 3% cap. Interestingly enough, new section 2 does say, Part C says the provisions of this section shall not apply to the state of Kansas or school districts. So understand that this would apply to cities, counties, fire districts, everyone but those two. So this would also have some potential pretty serious impact to your fire district. But again, school districts, even though they tend to be maybe 50 to 60% of your tax bill, are not a part of this property tax lid. So like Tanya said, there is something similar to the Astra bill that they have set up. This time it's called the Property Tax Relief Fund. And they are saying that it would be $60 million per year. Well, let me back up. On that 3% cap, you can exceed it if you want to go to an election, but you have to do it in the year before you actually want to do it. If you don't go to election, then you can be eligible for funds from this property tax relief fund. And what it says is that 20% would be apportioned equally among all the counties. So that's 12 million of the 60 million. That equates to about $114,000 per 105 counties. 40% would be distributed based on the population figures. And so if we look at that, the state of Kansas has about 3 million people, or about 536,000. So that's $8 basically per person. So Sedgwick County would be entitled to about 4.3 million under that part of the equation. And then it looks at the total assessed value of the state and says 20% of, the remaining 40% of the funds would be distributed based on that. And so, again, in that case, the total assessed value for the state of Kansas is right at 48.5 billion. Sedgwick County is at about 6.4 billion of that. So we're 13%. So under that part of the equation, that would give us about $3.2 million that we would potentially be eligible for under this. Altogether, that would potentially give us, if we did not have an election, up to an additional $7.6 million of funds from the state of Kansas. And the law says that that would potentially go up 2% every year. Now, that all sounds nice. But we do have demand transfers that we know have not been funded over the years, LAVTR and city county revenue sharing. So that obviously is always a risk. Also, like I said, Angela ran some numbers for us, and she looked at what prior years levies would actually look like under this. For 2025, we would have been down about $2.5 million on the county side. that is how much the difference would have been. And then on the fire district side, much more significant for them, $814,000. Because remember, the fire district is growing with so much development. So while these funds would come back potentially to us again, I remain skeptical because of LAVTR and city county revenue sharing. And on Friday at your budget retreat, we'll go through all of, just wanted to wake you up. We will go through all of the different actions that the state has taken, mortgage registration fee and other things where they have impacted us, which has had the impact of having to increase property tax reliance. At the same time, they exempted commercial machinery and equipment, commercial and industrial machinery and equipment, which shifted the tax burden to residential and ag, at least in Sedgwick County. So there are a lot of actions that have precipitated the property tax situation we're in. You'll also see all the county statistics that show how you have remained within inflation on almost everything. So I think the choice for the commission right now is this is the House bill. We do know that the Senate side has that 3% tax cap, the value cap. That would be a constitutional amendment. So we have a House bill that's working and a Senate bill that's working. The choice for you all, I think, is maybe to either decide whether you want to support, oppose, or be neutral on this bill. And if you're neutral on this bill, if there would be recommendations that you all might want to put forward to make it more workable. So like I said, this does look a lot like, parts of it look a lot like the old property tax lid. And if I went ahead and pulled the computation sheet from the old years, so I don't know if you want me to just jump into that or if you guys want to talk about where we are now. Sorry.
Can I throw a couple questions at you real
Of course.
quick? Just trying to better understand how many we always say, how many taxing entities do we say is on that tax bill? I always hear a number jump around quite a bit.
So I think on each, like an individual tax bill,
Yeah.
like I might have 7 or 8 because the school district can have multiple lines because each of their bonds is their own line. I have a fire district, I have a city, I have a school district, I have a library district. Some places could also have a cemetery district or rural water, something like that.
So I guess specifically, I'm trying to understand, how did the schools get exempted out of this? School bonds aren't included. The schools aren't included in this. You know, it seems like if this passes, schools are protected, but all these other taxing entities, we've just got to figure out how to make it work. So they'll do a normal valuation, and then the only thing that's capped is the
Cities,
non-school.
counties, special
Cities,
district,
counties.
special district.
Do you know how that happened, or?
I don't, but I will tell you that the bill also does exempt schools from R&R at the end of the bill. So
And
so I don't
now
know
they
if
have-
there will be a separate process for them. Angela, I'm going to look at you if you've heard anything that says schools would be subject to something else. Okay, I haven't heard either. So this essentially removes them from the R&R requirements that they're under today, just like we are. And then maybe there's a separate bill that's being worked that would talk about schools, but I don't know what that is. Tanya, you haven't heard anything, right? Yeah,
That was my next point, is they have to go through the revenue neutral today,
correct,
like we do.
correct.
And then,
The state does not, but schools have to.
does anybody get any questions or comments, or do you want Lindsay to continue?
Well, I was going to comment, but you mentioned it. So all of our property tax bills show about 25% city, county, and over 50, whatever school districts. So this has no impact on school districts
Correct.
and the states
Thank you.
as well. The state's incremental growth on. So
And one thing I'll note too for you all is there's no exception for like WSU. Or if you're an entity that maybe you levy on behalf of your library. In the old property tax lid, there was an exception for the assessed value growth that would occur on those stated mill levy rates. For us, we have a contract with the city that's based on statute, right? 1.5 mils generates whatever it is that assessed value brings in. So like, let's say assessed value goes up 9%. Well, whatever that 9% growth is, the 1.5 mils is entitled. They're entitled to that increase. That means that gap, that 6% gap over the 3% that's allowed, has to come elsewhere in our budget unless you want to go to an election. And then if you go to election, you're not even able to get access to those property tax relief funds. So there are many things in this bill that, I mean, it could be doable, but there need to be some changes in order to make it make sense.
The cost of election, that's more on the county or the city that's requesting the election. And what do we estimate the cost of a countywide election would be again?
I would have to get with Laura on what that cost would be, but the way it's set up, at least for this first one, we would have to have it in the primary election. So it says for calendar year 2026 only, any taxing jurisdiction seeking to increase the property tax revenue for the current year in excess of this amount shall request approval from the electors at the primary election. So we would have to know, I think, by July that it was your intent to hold an election. Because this would be a gubernatorial election, the cost is gonna happen anyway for the primary, so we wouldn't have any
And to be
additional
clear,
extra cost for that.
We have to request an election if we believe it's going to go over this threshold number, correct?
Correct.
Not R&R, threshold number of 3%.
Our would go away under this.
Correct. So it's this new threshold number, but we don't build our budgets until August. So
Well, you have a recommended budget by mid-July typically, because at least under R&R, the clerk's office provides us value information, estimated assessed value, bless you, by June 15th. So we would essentially have about 2 weeks from getting those assessed value figures to being able to tell the election commissioner that we want to put the ballot. I guess, to be fair, they do have the specific ballot language we would have to use listed at the very front.
it's one of the reasons you think that the schools are excluded from this is because they won't be taking part in the Astra reimbursement. Is that probably the main reason?
I would think that. And then there's also, I mean, the school funding system is very complex. And I think if they want to do something different for that and shift to a different revenue source for that, that's going to be very complicated, especially because they do have now some Supreme Court case law that says they have to adequately fund
Lawsuit.
schools.
Yeah.
I thought maybe that was, I don't want anybody listening to think that schools are nefarious and some of these are being left out because of lobbyists or it's because of some other reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, and schools are almost entirely reliant on property tax.
Correct.
We like to beat up schools because they're such a big portion of the tax bill, but they also, like counties, are restricted in what their funding can be. Cities have the most flexibility, counties have the middle flexibility, schools have the least. So they are almost exclusively reliant on property taxes, but for federal revenues that come into the system with certain things.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I might mention, we had Jason Watkins on the phone yesterday. We talked through this pretty extensively. It's possible that these both pass. I mean, whether it's realistic or not, he did indicate that it's possible. Or one or the other. So, and just to repeat the scorecard, we are on record as opposing the Senate bill. We are discussing this House bill now and what the way forward is. I think this is just the decision point for the commission on how you want to go forward on this particular.
Now, I just mentioned they're carrying on this on Thursday.
Remind me again, did the Senate bill exempt the schools?
It has nothing to do with schools, right? It's about assessed value at the very base. So everybody would be subject to that.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
So actually, to your point, that could be Commissioner Beatty, why they're doing it. There's this other 3% value cap that's out there that would affect schools.
All right, sure.
If I could speak real quick, if you don't mind, commissioners.
Sure.
Okay, so the reason I'm on this today, the League of Municipalities is a opponent of this, and Jay Hall spelled out some of the same things that Lindsay's talked about. Their focus really was on the election piece of it. How do you really estimate in 28 what you need in 28 and 26 to be able to have the election, blah, blah, blah. So he's asked the Kansas Sheriff's Association to weigh in as an opponent as well. I made it clear to our lobbyist, I don't really know much about this bill. I knew you guys were meeting on it and kind of was going to follow your lead. So if you decide to come in as opponents, if that information can be shared with me, KSA could come in as opponents as well. However, I have to get the information or that bill testimony to our lobbyist by tomorrow morning.
Sheriff, didn't Jay Hall just become the lobbyist for KASB? I think he did, didn't he?
Good job.
I
I'm,
don't
I'm,
know.
I'm just curious from some of the school board questions we got with this bill. That's the reason I asked.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, okay, sorry, thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah. Based on this memo from Aaron Wynn, is Johnson County gonna file in opposing this? Are they just giving us information?
I don't know that she's come out and said, the question was if anybody was planning to weigh in on it. But I think she did say in there that the city of Waco is planning on giving oral testimony that it was unworkable.
I think I'm trying to remember yesterday, but Jason's theory on all of these kinds of tax bills is maybe neutral with some amendment suggestion is the best way forward. Now, the commission can go whatever direction they want to go. And now if the sheriff's added this in about Sheriff Association opposition, that's interesting. But I don't recall yesterday on this particular bill, did he weigh in?
I think he was saying that if there was a way to make this one more workable, and but he said do what whatever political decision the commission wants. I do think it's important to note based on that, and this is probably, Sheriff, why the cities are in opposition, is all of this money that I'm talking about, the 60 million, comes to counties. There's no provision in there for cities. So it would be almost incumbent on us to figure out a way to share this with your 20 cities, townships, fire district, whomever. That part has not been addressed in here, but I do think I should have missed that, or I should have mentioned that before. So I apologize. But that 7 million that I mentioned is literally for all. Oh, never mind. There's yeah. Well, to cities and the cities within the county. Oh, no, because there's. Okay, so it says, the email that we have from Tanya says the state treasurer calculates the apportionment to each county, and then those distributions come to us, no other entities, and we can adopt interlocal apportionment agreements. So when we talk about that 7.6 million, that's for the entire Sedgwick County, not just Sedgwick County government.
Lindsay, can you comment on fire district there too? Is fire district?
They would have
that
to
would
be part of it.
that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any special district, anyone, cities, counties, townships, special districts, cemetery districts, anybody who you wanted to.
So to understand, based on the math that we have, the estimated is that we would be reimbursed, I don't know another term, but $7.6 million. And then we would have to try to figure out with interlocal agreements how we make sure that this
Correct.
20 cities, fire district, maybe townships are probably going to ask. Everybody's going to be asking, hey, what is our percentage of this? And we would have to. So this isn't 7.6 million to Sedgwick County government. This
Correct.
is to Sedgwick County, and then we determine through agreements what that looks like.
Right. And all 105 counties in the state of Kansas are going to have to go through that exercise. So potentially all 105 counties in Kansas could have different methodologies.
Okay. So do we want to try to figure out a better option of how to do this, or do we want to present a solution maybe, or?
The only
Amendment?
suggestion I could have, and it would basically be putting the property tax distribution fund like off, just ignoring it altogether, would be to base a front end cap. And so again, we used to have this beautiful page under the property tax lid where we would have to go in and fill out all kinds of information because we were allowed to factor in property tax growth of basically any of the new improvements that we talk about. Let's say a city annexes ground and grows, a city would have the opportunity to get credit for that new property that's added to its jurisdiction. This current bill doesn't have that. There also were adjustments for, I'll just read down the list, CPI adjustments for the prior year value of new improvements, real property added to the jurisdiction, real property that has changed in use. If there is property tax abatements that expired and came back onto the rolls, that was allowed to be factored in. If there were property tax revenues for debt service, that was able to be exempt, including PBC and special assessments. And then I think where the state kind of lost confidence in the property tax lid that existed was because of these next ones: court judgments and settlements, federal or state mandates, loss of federal funding, expenses related to disasters or federal emergency, law enforcement expenses, fire protection expenses, EMS expenses. But then the other one that made sense is the one I mentioned before, and that is levy on behalf of another political or governmental subdivision. So again, if we levied on behalf of WSU, that was one that was able to be exempt. Likewise, if somebody, levied taxes on behalf of a recreation district or something like that, that would be able to be exempt. So those would be the kinds of things that, because they already exist in statute, might be easier to try to resurrect and add in. They also had an election timeline that was much more workable under that old property tax lid. And so if we were going to try to make amendments, I would probably recommend that we just try and have some kind of hybrid of that old property tax lid to make it workable. Not saying I advocate for that, but that would be the other option.
I'm messaging with some of my our peers, county commissioners across the state. They are, Tanya, asking that the big five come out in opposition and joint testimony by tomorrow morning. So I don't know if that's a workable solution for us at all, even, but I don't know if we want to come out in opposition or if neutral is the way, or I don't know exactly how.
If the 3% is the scariest part, would you dare say, could you change that to CPI plus 1%?
It's-
percent.
I think honestly, I think it's more than just the 3%. I think WSU in and of itself is the scariest part when you look at assessed value growth of 9% and the fact that they already get roughly 11 or 12 million a year. And you have that 9% growth versus the 3%, you are always going to have to eat that in your budget. Sorry.
I think the big five want to get together.
Does that change the narrative here if the big five want to oppose?
I mean, I think it sounds like you have a couple options. You can go big five, or you can go, Sedgwick County. How you want to go, or you could do a combination of both.
I obviously, I think we all have some fears about this. I don't know if we could stand by in neutral if we have some significant fears. I do appreciate the neutral, but with suggested amendments. I do think that might be the best approach. It almost feels like you have to pick your poison. Do we like the Senate bill? Do we want to strongly oppose that, or would we rather have the House bill pass? And can we just play with that? Both of them are really hard on counties, and I'm not sure that matters. So,
Thinking about the future, if we stay neutral with recommendations, knowing that it's going to be financially painful, even with our recommendations, then future people say why. We say, well, we tried to do our best, but they adopt what we recommend, then we kind of own the future, which I'm not sure that I want to have my name on the future on that one. But it's requiring a lot of quick thinking for us all here. Be opposite. Now I'm leaning opposition and ask the 5 counties to just be opposed.
No matter no matter where the track leads, we'd have to do service cuts. Getting ready to jump into a budget here And I'll tell the commission what I tell them every year, there's going to be tremendous pressure this year on service. Already in our current system, this kind of system will aggravate that. And you will be put into a position as elected officials that you will have to cut services. We never, even in this, all of this debate of property tax, we never talk about the core is what does it take to run government? Not talking about that. We're just talking about a property tax cut. But we have this discussion every year. I'm not sure where we cut. It would be very difficult decisions for the commission on figuring out where we cut. And this will make it worse.
Question timing. This would go into effect. I didn't see that in the bill. 2027.
For the 2027 budget, but it discusses having it on the primary in 2026 if you want to have an election. So it seems as though it would basically be adopted upon when it passes, almost.
Okay.
And I think Angela corrected me. I think we may actually have a June 1st deadline to get on the August ballot. So we would have to make that decision just a few months from now with no estimates.
And just a technical question, if you have it on the election and it gets voted down, then you can't apply for the grant.
Correct. If you choose to go to election, either way, you are not eligible. And that would then apply to all of the 20 cities, townships, and everybody else in your county.
And we just had a lengthy discussion about what people feel about property tax. So we know if we go to election.
Do we have any idea what the number we're talking about, assessed valuation, 3% plus the new construction stuff? Do we have any estimate of what we're looking at in Sedgwick County? Will you by Friday, maybe?
Will I by Friday?
The budget retreat, have an idea of, hey, if this thing goes, that
Deanna?
we're looking at 4%, 4.5%.
Well, when is your presentation to the
The
commission?
informal will be tomorrow.
Okay.
Informing.
Well, then perhaps, not that, I don't know that the new construction portion, what probably would happen is I would ask Miss Angela John, my BFF back there, to help me get last year's information and model it off of that. Just to make some at least educated guesses.
I think that's fine. I mean, I think we would want to know, is this 3.2% assessed value that we should be considering, or does this thing jump to 4.5 that we would have to consider? I mean, I think that's the conversation.
Well, and I'll let you know, right now, we are planning on the commission allowing us to capture 4% assessed value growth in the forecast. And so that's what you'll see, and we are in okay shape with that. The scenario changes dramatically if you go down to 3% per year. And you have to remember, we have step plans that we are committed to for employees. And a new ComCare crisis building that's going to open up soon, that's going to require some new costs and infrastructure across the organization. So nothing's getting easier or cheaper. Property insurance isn't getting cheaper. You're going to see that on your sheet. It's 11,000 or 1,100% versus where we were in the Great Recession. So it's just, this is an exceptionally challenging bill to work with, just so you know.
Sheriff, are you digesting this and any observation or weighing in?
Yeah, I am. I mean,
Sorry.
I have my opinions on it, and I'll keep those opinions myself. I just, in trying to figure out if Kansas Sheriff's Association should weigh in on this. But on the flip side of that, as being the legislative chair, I don't want to be on the opposite end of my commissioners.
A spoiler alert, the sheriff has a whole half hour at the budget retreat. He's got challenges he's going to bring forward.
Why don't we see, would you reach out to Aaron with Big Five and see if they can craft some testimony? That I don't think it's fair for us to ask, or it's fair for us to consider joining that platform of opposition until we see what language they're coming forth with, and see if they're willing to draft a letter of opposition, and then maybe you can circulate it, and then we can go from there. I think I might be saying this. Okay.
Everybody in agreement? Okay, then?
Yeah, right there. Okay. That's.
Anything else from legislative? Okay, Justin, I think we're down to you to give commission an update on kind of where we're at with the consultant work with data centers, and we'll probably talk about this frequently over the next 90 days. So.
All right, thanks, Tom. Justin Wagoner, County Councilor. I just wanted to give a quick update. As you all know, you approved in January a data center interim development control resolution that expires on April 17th of this year. The county, there's been a contract entered into with the Berkeley Group to provide consulting services to planning department staff. They've met with them already, and they're going to continue to have regular meetings with them throughout that 90-day timeframe, the review process. Really, this has been broken down into 3 30-day timelines that staff's looking at. In the first 30 days to wrap up a state of practice report and provide an updated version of the white paper. There's a current version available on the MAPD website. The second 30-day timeframe would include having the consultant assist with draft regulations, which would just be a starting point in terms of some of the discussions on this with MAPD staff to incorporate those into our zoning code. Again, and nothing set in stone, just in draft starting point. Have presentations in front of the Board of County Commissioners at least one BOCC staff meeting, just like we're meeting here today. I'm sure there will maybe many other opportunities for you all to have input and ask questions as well. But there would also be, there are soon to be discussions at the Advanced Plans Committee, which is a subcommittee of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. In fact, their first meeting on this topic is this Thursday morning. I talked some with Scott Wadle, and he indicated that they're probably going to talk about this every 2 weeks when they meet. It's probably going to be a continuing agenda item on their agenda. There is some just early discussions, and nothing has been established formally yet, but the possibility of hosting some sort of an open house or discussion. I know solar a few years ago, the county commission did something very similar to that, where the public was given an opportunity to come in and provide feedback, ask questions and comments to county commissioners and to planning staff. And then lastly, I did just want to say, just a reminder, what I'm talking about here and what's going on is a legislative item. This has nothing to do, right now there's a pause in place, and you all know that because you adopted it, just for awareness. So there's no current pending zoning applications for data centers, nor can there be right now in Sedgwick County. But these efforts are aimed at potentially coming up with zoning code provisions that specifically address how data centers are handled if and when there are some regulations that are put in place for data centers. After that, there would be applications, and then there would be the whole hearing process. Something I forgot to mention in all of this was the final 30 days of that 90-day period, and I apologize for that. The final 30-day part would have there'd be presentation to the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. There's a required statutory hearing that would have to occur, a public hearing. There would also be a Board of County Commissioners, which I'm very certain you all would hold a public hearing on this as well. And even though it's not required by statute, I would presume that that's something you would intend to do. And because we do have a joint zoning code with the City of Wichita, there would need to be a City of Wichita City Council adoption of any regulations that are put forth. I'd be happy to stand for any questions. Just wanted to provide an update on those items.
Thank you so much for the update. I really want to over communicate as we go through these 90 days, what we're doing in the process, what questions we're asking, what answers we're getting, and just what opportunities there are for the public to actually show up to, whether it's town hall or some of these planning meetings, that they can come and voice their concern or ask questions. So maybe if we could just have some of those dates of meetings ahead of time so we can all share them with our constituents and on our social media pages where I think most people get their info. But I just want to over communicate that and make sure that we're making it very easy for people to know when they can show up, where their voices can be heard, other than, just each of us individually or collectively on emails and calls.
Certainly, and I'll relay that to planning staff, and I think that's something they could put together, just a listing of those, of whether it's advanced plans, planning commission, if and when an open house be scheduled, that could all be done, Commissioner.
Great. Yeah.
Justin and I talked some about this morning too, and we're following the template of the solar discussions that we had. We're in a 3 30-day segments here. First 30, middle 30, last 30. Seems like the middle 30 is where we're going to eyeball the town hall. kind of like what we did out at Extension Center when we did solar. It was very well attended. It was a good session, kind of an open mic for citizens to be heard. So we'll calendar something like that as soon as we feel comfortable doing that, and give you plenty of notice. So.
The questions, comments? Anything else? Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.